Theruvan Saranai everyone. We are now about to do the meditations on greed, hate and delusion. So in each of these meditations, what we're doing is applying our own examples to see, is it true that if we hold on to anything, we end up in suffering. We also need to keep in mind that we need to go through the greed path in order to get to the hate path, and we need to have gone through the hate path in order to get to the delusion path. So these three paths are interconnected that way. So by listening to the doctor's explanation, we know there are three meditations. The first meditation has two parts. In the first part, we're looking at the first line and the last line and applying our own examples. And in the second part, we're looking at the third line and the last line and applying our own examples. So what's in the first line? The first line has the agreeable objects. These are the things we label as the so-called good objects according to our preference. Then there is the disagreeable object or the bad object according to us. And then there are the neither agreeable nor the disagreeable objects. These are the things we say, I don't love it, I don't hate it, and I'm indifferent to it. These are also the things you don't have much experience with. For example, food you've never really had before, so you don't really know if it's good or bad according to you. The last line has the outcome of going down each of these parts. These are painfulness in change, painfulness as pain, and painfulness in constructions. So in the meditation, we try to understand if we have an agreeable object, we end up with painfulness in change. Meaning, if the thing we liked changed, we have a dissatisfaction, a pain associated with it. Now we take examples to see if this is true. One example is the time we went inside a mother's womb. When we went inside a mother's womb, we thought this was a great thing. But since the time we entered the mother's womb, like a cloud accumulating dust over time, we have been aging. Therefore, there is a painfulness in change. If that's the case, we think, is there any great thing where we can say, I don't see any problems with this thing? So in the meditation, we take various examples and come to the conclusion, yes, there is this painfulness in change associated with any agreeable object. Next, we try to understand if we have a disagreeable object, we end up in painfulness as pain, which means simply because now we are left with the thing we don't want, there is a pain associated with that. Again, we take an example to see if this is true. So one example is, as soon as we enter the mother's womb, what do we next do? Excrement, right? And that's not something anyone wants to be next to. So there's a clear problem there. When we were outside of the mother's womb, we were hungry and in distress. So we went inside a mother's womb thinking this is a better option. But it's suffering there. When we contact this pain by our mind, we are sad about it too. So we started with pain and we ended with pain. So we see there is painfulness as pain. Now we try to understand that if we have an alright object or an object that is neither agreeable or disagreeable, we end up with painfulness in constructions. What does it really mean, this painfulness in constructions? It means that we want to construct or get the best, most perfect thing. But because that perfect thing we daydream about doesn't exist, we settle for something less, thinking, this is not too bad. This is all right. Because we are mentally sick and mentally tired, so we just want to settle with something. Whatever the thing we want to construct falls short of the best in our mind. So there is a pain associated with that. That is the painfulness in constructions. Now we take an example to see, is this true? One example could be when we are about to go into a mother's womb. We only really have two options here. If we go into the mother's womb, we age. If we don't go inside a mother's womb, the mind-made body will wear out and vanish. Either option isn't good, but we think it's fine and take one of the losing options. Another example is we're trying to study hard, but we can't get the grades or we can't create the results we're looking for. So that's painful. Another example is we try to get a job, but we can't. Or we get a job, but there's something not quite right about it. Either our colleagues are really nice, but the work is really stressful, or the work is really good, but the colleagues could be better. So we go from job to job thinking the grass might be greener on the other side. Another example is we found a husband or a wife, but there's something you think only if he or she could be more like this or could do this better. Meaning there is some painfulness associated with that construction. Another example is that we created or constructed an eye, an ear, a nose, a tongue, a body, and a mind in about 10 months, but we didn't manage to construct it perfectly, so it's subject to breaking or subject to death. This is painfulness in constructions. And in the meditation, we think, is there any object, anything at all, that I can take where I can say there are no problems associated with this thing? That's the first part of the first meditation, which is the meditation on the first line and the last line. Now we take the third line and the last line and go through the same process. The third line has the three feelings, right? The pleasant feeling, the painful feeling, and the neither painful nor pleasant feeling. And similar to the objects, we think, is there any feeling we can take saying there are no problems with having this feeling? So with the pleasant feeling, we end up with painfulness in change. We take examples to see, is this true? One example could be, we tasted this amazing food, but over time, it just doesn't taste the same because our taste buds have worn out. Or we managed to develop some sort of illness like diabetes, so we can't enjoy that food the same way anymore. So we analyze, is there any pleasant feeling where I can say, I have no issues with this? Next, we have the painful feeling. If I'm not able to taste food the way I used to, that's not a pleasurable feeling, right? So I started with pain, going into the mother's womb. Now I'm still in pain. So we think, is there any painful feeling where I can say, I don't see any problems with this painful feeling? Next, we have the neither pleasant nor non-pleasant feeling, which end up in painfulness in constructions. Let's take the example of the person in a mind-made body to see whether this is true. So, the person in the mind-made body can't eat or have any sensual pleasures. So they want a gross body. So they're going here and there to see where's a good place to be born. It's almost like how we go shopping for a house. We go to the first house and think, oh, the kitchen's too small. Or think, I don't like the paint, or the yard isn't big enough. But after visiting several houses, you think, you know what? Let's just go with that third house we saw. Likewise, we think, oh, these people aren't rich enough, or I don't like this neighborhood. But because time is running out, you settle and you choose one mother's womb. It's not the best, so there is a painful in that construction. Before you go into a mother's womb, you're subject to suffering. After you do go into a mother's womb, you're still subject to suffering. So that's how you go from the neither painful nor pleasurable feeling to painfulness in constructions. So, after we analyze like this, we realize there is no object or a feeling that is not included in the suffering. Then we think, is it worth going into a mother's womb again? So that's the first meditation. In the second meditation, we go through the first part. In doing so, we take the example of going into a mother's womb. I know it's difficult and embarrassing, but if we don't look at this now and analyze it, the chances of us making the same mistake again is very high. And this meditation provides training for that very important point in our lives, which is that death moment. So let's go through it. We start with the person in the mind-made body. And here we are not talking about someone who's very chill and relaxed. The mindset of this person is that they are distressed, they haven't eaten in days, and they have been traveling here and there, they're tired, and they feel like their time is running out. So, a person in that mindset sees a couple having an intimate moment. This is a pleasurable object because we need a gross body to be able to eat again. So this is a pleasurable contact for us, and we get a pleasurable feeling. Now we are approaching this with joy, as if to say, yeah, I wouldn't mind watching this film. And there's no one here to see me and catch me. And then lust arises. With that, we start thinking sensual thoughts like, I want to do what they're doing. And now we are burning with lust. Because we now want to start doing what they're doing ourselves, as soon as the man moves away from the woman, we grab hold of the woman's body. In other words, what we do is establish our consciousness in a canal of urine and excrement. That is called the constructed characteristic of arising. It's like in an instant, you got stuck in a dark room with no windows, no light, a room that smells like excrement. It's like you've been put into solitary confinement in a dirty toilet cubicle for a good 9 to 10 months for the crimes you've committed. Doctor's example is being put into jail for watching blue films. And the other crimes being, of course, sexual misconduct and stealing. We grabbed hold of a woman's body without her consent, so that's sexual misconduct, and we took the sperm without permission, that is taking what is not given or stealing. Here we could recall the elegant Gatha by the Lord Buddha, which goes, Satang cheva sahassanang kappanang samsarisati. We roam in samsara 100,000 eons. Atavapi tato biya gabba gabbang gamasati. Out of that, most of the time we go from womb to womb. Anupadaya buddha vachanang sankharo attato upadaya. Not taking Buddha's words and taking volitional formations as mine. Dukkhaskandang karisanti thanametang na vijjati. The ending of suffering cannot be found. So, by taking volitional formations like sexual misconduct and stealing, Buddha is saying the ending of suffering cannot come to pass. Using 3 things, we become born. Which 3 things? The picture or the form we watched, the feeling we got from it, and then from establishing the consciousness, we are born or went into a mother's womb. We then continue that suffering because of it. So we then think, is it befitting for me to go into a mother's womb again? Then we think, regardless of which world we go to, isn't it going to be subject to painfulness in change as well? So this is the second meditation. Alright, in the third meditation, we are going to do it using this diagram. It's looking at how we are burning with lust, burning with hate, and burning with delusion. Doctor says, what's drawn here is akin to a vehicle. What's akin to a vehicle? Our mind, right? A vehicle is something that moves by rotating certain parts. Likewise, our mind runs by rotating 3 belts. The lust belt, the hate belt, and the delusion belt with our wrong thoughts. By rotating these belts with our wrong thoughts, we maintain the stream of consciousness. The lust belt has the agreeable object at the physical nutriment, the pleasurable contact at the contact as nutriment, and the pleasurable feeling at the feeling. And then it also has coveting and greed. This belt has been marked as burning with lust. In other words, we are happy to keep on eating and we are burning with lust. So what happens as we keep on eating? Our taste buds are gone, meaning the belt is worn out. So now we can see the second belt is coming up. The hate belt has the disagreeable object at physical nutriment, the contact to be felt as painful, is the contact, and then you get the painful feeling. Also, you can see the aging is there too. So that is the second belt, and we are burning with hate. The third belt, the bigger belt, has the neither agreeable nor the disagreeable object at the physical nutriment, the contact to be felt as neither pleasurable nor painful is the contact, and then the neither pleasurable or painful feeling is the feeling. So this belt is the one that is actually running most of the time. We are burning with delusion most of the time. And this is slow because it's going through a lot of things. Because of the wrong thought, we are burning with lust, burning with hate, and burning with delusion. We can have a look at these three belts by placing a couple in the car. One of them is driving the car, and say the other one spots this beautiful hotel on top of a hill. And they think, oh, maybe we could have an amazing lunch here and spend the night here, and all sorts of other sensual desire thinking, and start burning with lust. But of course, when they get there, the hotel may have finished with their lunch hours, or the food served might be suboptimal, or there aren't any hotel rooms available, or the rooms available just aren't really the scenic ones. So they go through ill will thinking and start burning with hate because they're not getting what they were looking for. Now they think, look, we came this far, so let's just get whatever we can get. So they go down harming thinking and start burning with delusion. We can see that the delusion belt includes everything, including volitional formations like lying and frivolous speech. Taking things as mine is the biggest lie. The couple throughout this whole thing is taking things as permanent and taking things as mine, and then burning with lust, burning with hate, and burning with delusion. We also notice that the feeling is common to all of these three belts, meaning that regardless of what it is, it ends in pain. If that's the case, we think, is it befitting for me to take anything as mine? So this is the third meditation. So through these three meditations, we get a really good idea of the mechanics of the universe and understand whatever the object, whatever the feeling, we end up with suffering. Now let's meditate like this for the next 30 minutes. Therang Sarang.